Okay, I guess we can get started then. I think we got almost everybody. So thank you for coming to the vernal pools class. I don't know how many are familiar with vernal pools. I've been hosting it since about 2016. I think it was 2014 that the State Virginia Master Naturalist had opened it up to the rest of the Master Naturalists. You'll hear in the video that we'll be watching that of the background of the project and everything, how it came about. And I think there's a couple of people here that aren't Master Naturalists. I'm not certain. I've got to ask yet if you can use the sitside.org for entering data, if it's only for Master Naturalist. If it is, then I'll find somebody else if you're interested in entering data in that. Let's see. First, I'll show you the video. It'll be about 45 minutes long. That's the video originally held in October 2014 with the state webinars where it's listed. Then I'll show you a PowerPoint that one of the co-founders of the Vernal Pool program had created, and it'll be showing the obligate species, what they look like, some of their biology and that. And then I'll probably show you the sitside.org website, which is where we enter data in that. And then we'll do a little bit of housekeeping in that. So let me see if I can get this share screen thing set up. Okay. Can everybody see the screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Well, it looks like it's still loading or something. It worked earlier this afternoon. Come on. I don't know if there's any way to refresh this or not. If we have to, I can go to the, what now?
Try just getting out of it and starting again.
Okay, let me do that then. Come on, let's get out. Okay, let me escape. Well, now I can't even get out. Okay, let me hit there. It's not even stopping. Okay, let me do a refresh. See if that does anything. Come on. Nope. Okay. We'll click everywhere as that we can then. Okay. Let us get out of here, period. Then we'll go to the state. Because it worked fine an hour ago as a thing. Okay, continuing education, webinar series. And go all the way down to the bottom. Okay, watch the video. Let's see if we can get to it from here.
So I wanted to introduce our speakers for today. They're going to be talking about citizen science opportunities for vernal pools in the state of Virginia. Lee Hessler, who is a volunteer with the Pocahontas chapter of our program, is with us. Ann Wright, who is the coordinator for environmental outreach education at Virginia Commonwealth University's Rice Center, is also with us. And then Susan Watson, who is a terrestrial wildlife biologist with the Department of Game and Inland Fisheries, is with us as well. So I welcome all of you, and feel free to start whenever you would like. I'm going to turn off my webcam.
Hi, everybody. I'm Ann Wright, and I'm going to start off with some of the background as to how we got to be doing this talk for you today. And it actually happened with citizen scientists documenting vernal pools and landscape change here in Virginia. I'd like to give just a brief introduction of what a vernal pool is and why we would be concerned about them. Next. So a vernal pool is basically a depression on the landscape, a low spot on the landscape that fills with water and dries out, generally speaking, on a seasonal basis. So this slide, you can see the upper slide is the pool at the end of the summertime. The basin of the pool is dry and covered with a leaf material. Then in the lower left hand, you can see the frozen water that has collected in the pool once the leaves fell off and rain started falling down through the fall and the wintertime. And then on the lower right, you see the pool in the late spring. And generally speaking, this is the hydrologic cycle of these pools. They reach their maximum in the late spring, and then they dry out in the course of the year by the summertime. And there are exceptions to all of this, but that's the general idea. And because of this seasonal or cyclical drying and filling, they don't support fish populations. That's a key component of these habitats. So as such, they have co-evolved with a bunch of different interesting animals that have taken advantage of this sort of drying and filling cycle. The pools are also usually quite small, and they tend to be overlooked or not well understood by the general populace, and as such, they're considered to be really threatened habitats. They're technically described as isolated wetlands. They usually occur separate from other water bodies, and they have become these critical habitats for these species that have sort of evolved their life histories to take advantage of them. And here are a couple of species: fairy shrimp, that crustacean you see in the upper left. They are one of the iconic sort of inhabitants of these systems. Then there's a whole group of salamanders, the mole salamanders. There's a group of spotted salamanders looking down at a bucket on the right-hand side. And then the wood frog, the sort of gray, not gray, the brown frog that you see on the lower left. And these animals really depend on these habitats for their mating and their egg laying and then their larval stages. So how we got to this spot, we had a professor at Virginia Commonwealth University, Charlie Blim, and he and his wife went out in the late 80s and traveled around to a number of counties around the city of Richmond and stopped and sampled in what they considered to be vernal pools and collected this data set. He wrote 2 papers about what he collected data on. He was looking at acid rain at the time and its effect.
How many people have seen this video already?
I have not.
Okay, somebody had said that several of them had seen it, but if we don't have people that have seen it, so let's just continue it then.
On spotted salamander, egg-laying success in recruitment, and then he kind of laid that aside and went on to other things. And this data set was all collected before GPS technology actually became, an important thing that people had to use. Next slide. So this is just one of the only remaining original map that he was able to leave us with, but it gives you an idea of what we had to work with. This is a county map, and on it, it had all the locations that he stopped at in Henrico County. And then each pool location had a data sheet associated with it that had directions on where to find the pool, and then comments about how big it was, how deep it was, how many, whether or not he found salamander species in it or not, and such. Next one. So we inherited that data set when he left in 2005. And one of the things that he did before he left was he took us out to some of these pool locations, which happened to be at our field station, the Rice River Center in Charles City County. And that got us all excited about the pools and about the species that were in them and so forth. We wrote a grant in 2010 that got us started on a project called Vernal Pools in the Human Footprint. And this had three components. It had a research component. We looked at these sites 20 years later and did a geospatial analysis of them. Then it had this citizen science component to it. We enlisted master naturalists to do the ground, hands-on, on-the-ground work to go out and revisit these sites and collect data. And then there was a big awareness component that we did with the different chapters that we worked with the master naturalists and also with the general public when we wrapped the project up. And those are our partners on it. We partnered up with the Master Naturalist program here in William and Mary and Game and Inland Fisheries. And so the first thing that we did was we took that hand-drawn map, which had the 216 sites dotted out on it, and we digitized it. We hired a student to do a GIS coverage of it and make best guesses about where the pools actually were, and that was a major first step in the progress of the project. We also drew upon other groups' materials that had already been developed about vernal pools, about how to go about identifying them, what you would look at when you monitored them, and so forth. And so we developed these data sheets and some GIS materials, and also a plan. We made up a packet for each location with these in it so that people could search for these sites. And then we ended up recruiting 80 volunteers from 3 different chapters. The chapters fell out nicely depending on, for their locations as to where they would actually look for pools. And each chapter got a equivalent amount of sites to look for. Then we sent them out, and this is an example of a site. You can see how the landscape might have changed in the course of 20 years with all that development. But this was sort of an aerial view of what they would be looking for that site in Chesterfield County. And so here are what we got as results. It took 2 years to actually complete this pool search. The first year was a really dry year, and the second year we had a lot of rain. So we had these people recruited that went out. Some went out both years looking for these pools. But we feel like we addressed all of the 216 sites. Of those numbers, that lower segment of the circle pie chart, 114 sites we found and felt confident that we had found the site and it was still present. And then in roughly almost equal numbers, 43 of the sites we felt like we found and they were not there. They had been destroyed either by development, logging, agriculture, roads, and such. Those were the major categories that describe the impact on the pool, with the biggest number of them being eliminated because of development. And then there were 59 pools that we really didn't feel confident enough about finding the actual location, or there was some reason that we were not confident about using that data. So roughly speaking, you could say that about half of the pools still were there, with varying amounts of pools that had either been lost or not found. And there's just another visual of where the sites were. This is from the GIS coverages that we had. And the red are pools that were absent or had been actually lost to development or whatever. And then the yellow circles are the pools that were still in existence. And so from that grant, we could check off some of the accomplishments and then some of the things that we were not able to accomplish. We did accomplish the research. We did a geospatial analysis of how the landscape had changed in those 20 years. We did engage citizens to collect real data for this scientific research. And we did raise a lot of awareness about these systems throughout the life of the project. What we weren't able to get in place was a statewide monitoring program, or to be able to finalize a database for all of this information. We had originally thought we would blend it into the wildlife mapping site on the Game Department's website, but because of personnel changes, that did not happen. So there were two things that we felt like we didn't accomplish and were kind of left hanging. But then Lee Hessler and his wife Jane knocked on the door, and they had actually come in sort of on the tail end of the project and gotten very excited about what they were doing. And Lee had contacted Mark Batista in Chesterfield County, the Naturalists for Chesterfield, and gotten him interested in the pools. And they approached me about reinvigorating this project. And from there, we discussed ways to do it and decided that what we would do would be to focus on public lands that were within the area that the chapter drew membership from, the Master Naturalist chapter. We decided on public lands because that eliminated the difficulty of dealing with private landowners and usage of data about where pools were located and such. It also would fill a need for providing data on the conservation and management of these habitats. We found during the 2-year grant project that there really was a need and a call for information from resource managers and people that worked at parks and such, and for agencies. These really are habitats that fly under the radar. They're not always listed on wetland charts and whatever. And so it would be helpful to everyone to have some kind of coverage of where these things are located, particularly ones that support good populations of species, the species of interest. So we've been pulling together a collaborative of different agencies and groups to work on this project. The Virginia Department of Conservation and Recreation, the Game Department, the Department of Forestry, the Department of Transportation, National Park Service, U.S. Fish and Wildlife, at least one soil and water conservation district, our two universities that originally worked on it. And when we got back into this last year, we ended up with about 7 Master Naturalist chapters that became involved with it. So we're really looking at developing a template for doing a statewide pool inventory. As part of this, when we began discussing this with Alicia, she suggested that we try out the CITSI website as a place to archive the data. And so that is what we've done. And this past year was our test year to use that as the data repository. And then one other thing that we did was to start a Facebook page to kind of try to get people to talk about what they're doing, share pictures, information, just as a kind of a fun thing. Let's see, next one. And I think that's it for my part. So that sort of sets the stage as to why we're here. And I'm going to hand it over now to Lee Hessler to talk about the specifics of what he's been working on, because he's really been sort of a motivator in all of this. Whoops, that's at the end. You get a quick look.
As Ann mentioned, we did make CITSI the final selection for the repository of our data and longer-term storage, but we looked at a lot of other systems along the way just to make sure that because we had a lot of different constraints from all the various different agencies as to what they expected and how the data needed to be stored and protected, and a lot of other different issues that had to be resolved. But CITSI, and we've been working with them now at Colorado State, particularly Russ Scarpino and Greg Newman are the two contacts out there, and they've just been fantastic. Whenever we have a problem, they solve it, and I think over the last year, the CITSI project from our standpoint has improved tremendously, and I think it's really come to be what we needed in terms of a data management system. They currently have over 100 active projects, and we're going to go there. I think probably rather than looking at a bunch of PowerPoint charts, it'd be a lot more interesting to actually go to the CITSI site. And we're going to let David bring up the CITSI site. And he's going to be managing, so it's going to be a little awkward. We didn't want to try to do a remote connect up here. So David's going to be my clicker on the site. So when you go to the site, and it's citsi.org, and this is what comes up. And what we're going to do first, though, is we're going to select the tab under Projects. Oh, yeah, you might want to log in. There we go. And we'll select the Projects tab. And it comes up with the list of this 100+ projects. And if you type in Vernal, 2 projects come up. And the first project is basically the data that we collected over the last year or so. And we now have an empty project awaiting new data for 2014 to 2015. So here is what you get when you go in and look at that. Notice that the number of observations up on top We have over 281 different independent observations of various pools, and that represents 119 different pools that have been located in different areas of Virginia. Quite a number of active members with the project, is shown here. And if we can go down and take a look at, say, the first project, go ahead and click on View. There it is. There's the information that comes up that was entered. Notice that we're very big on pictures. Pictures are extremely valuable. If someone else wants to go out and take a look at a pool, it's really amazing how valuable that picture can be. And all these pictures in this system are downloadable, as is the individual data file for that particular pool. You can look at it. And that's typically the typical type of data. Now, not all of the visits necessarily repeat or duplicate all the information. Okay? It's only maybe some things that might be new or different. Now, if we go back, David, to the new project of my profile, if you have it. Oh, yeah, I guess we could also do, since we do have data here, why don't we look at the Analysis tab. And there's quite a number of different analysis capabilities that are available within SitSci that has been expanded, make pie charts. Now, some of this data isn't particularly meaningful, but the capability is obviously there to analyze the data. There's one pie chart format. Now, if we can go then, David, to the back to my profile and click on the let's click on the new project. I'd like to show basically how we enter the data using the data sheets that have been developed. Just click on this, enter data. And you fill in the information. When did you do the visit? You fill in the names of the people that are actually doing the visit. There's a place there for comments. Maybe if you saw something that was unusual, you might enter it into that comment field. And then all of the locations of the pools, they've been identified and the GPS coordinates given to me, and then we've essentially set up a list of all the sites, and you just go in and pick the particular site that you're looking at, and it shows up on the map. And there's a particular one at Dutch Gap. You see, it's right along the river there. Now, the first thing that we go are if there are particular species that you may have seen while you're walking around that pool. For example, the first one, if you happen to see water snake, and you might estimate its length. How large was it? There's a number of different, you can look at for toads. There's the various salamanders, different types of salamanders that you might see, turtles, different types of frogs. And again, this is just to record that information. The basic site characteristics are further down in the data sheet. And the first one being is the pool located on public or private property? Very important. Right now, all of our work has pretty much been done on public property, but looking ahead, if we have a property owner's permission to look at that pool and enter the data in a database that would be available to the different agencies, we can include that pool also in the database. And going down, most of these various questions, they're basically questions about the site that you're looking at. For example, do you see the inlet? Do you see the outlet? How much of the area has been shaded? Just an estimate, a percentage of what the canopy looks like. What the weather So most of these are pull down selects with a few numbers in terms of pool egg masses and the various condition of the different egg masses. Then there's some rather specific ones dealing with other types of larvae and some of the microinvertebrates that might inhabit that pool as well as general how big is the pool, how deep it is. Again, kind of some of the standard characteristics. And again, this data sheet was based on earlier work from Maine. So we really have not invented, we've only taken and adopted it into the SITSI format. Okay, if you can go back, and then you would submit this. And again, we encourage everyone to take pictures and upload pictures. And that was one of the reasons for really dividing the data collection into calendar years. Because that way, all of the pictures from the previous year are available. Any sketches you might have made of the pool are all available. So here you can, again, just you can upload the pictures. There's David. Got one. He's uploaded one. And again, all of this by the person that's entering the data. It is editable. If you mess up, it's not a big deal. In fact, they can actually delete it if they decide it's totally wrong. They can bail out and edit the different characteristics. So it's quite flexible, and it's really rather straightforward to enter the data. The data can be downloaded for the appropriate resources that are be using the data. It can be downloaded either to a PC or a Mac as essentially an Excel file. And let's see, I guess we can also take a look at, there's a place on here for resources. We've put up the examples of some different paper data sheets that you can actually use for field use. There's one of them. Take out in the field with you to collect the data out there, and then bring it back and enter it into the database once you've finished. Also we'll include information on sterilization or sanitation procedures that need to be followed, and Susan will be talking about that a little bit later. Also, media, all of the photos and stuff that have been uploaded are available, and they're stored there, so you can again look at all of those, and those are available for downloading. So it's quite a flexible system. Okay, I think that pretty well covers it. David, if we can go ahead and shift back now to, oh, what you got here? A few pages. We've done this, yeah. That's typically, it's a very standard, typical Excel file that can be downloaded with all the information. It also captures all of the comments fields. And it's got all the various coordinates, and then off to the right side are all the various site characteristics and species that might have been identified by that. So again, pretty straightforward and pretty powerful, which again, the key thing was trying to make the data available to the different agencies that were interested in using the data in a format that they could manage in a straightforward way. We didn't want them to have to collect 250 data points and then process them in some way. It had to be presented to them in a reasonable fashion. And we think that between SITSI and its downloading capabilities that we've achieved that. So turn it over
And
to.
it's,
Go ahead.
well, I might inject that this is all still in development, so it's something that is being refined as we're moving forward and seeing what works, what doesn't work, what might be a better way of doing something.
And this is Susan, and I have gone onto the site already and downloaded data as Lee has just shown us, and had good success with that. Like he said, it's very easy and it gives you all the data you need. And so when we back at the office went ahead and got this data and worked with the GIS shop to start looking at some possible maps we may use. And so this map here shows the vernal pools that were identified and monitored. And what we did here was we showed relatively the size of the pools. So the smaller dots represent pools of smaller area size, and as it goes up, the bigger dots are large pools of water. And also what we show on this map, so the pools that have been identified and monitored, again, are on public property, so they are covering the public properties on this map where they are, but as you can see, there's a lot of other colors on the map for other public properties that are out there that can be monitored if you contact the resource managers at these sites. So, and we've got several different types. We've got federal, local, and state properties all shown on this map. And this, of course, being the statewide map, but if we go to the next slide, I did zoomed in to the area where most of our master naturalists are monitoring pools in Chesterfield and down in southeast Virginia. And so you can see a little more detail, a lot of the other smaller properties that are in the areas close to where these pools are. So there's a lot of potential for searching for, finding new sites, and identifying and monitoring more pools. And again, you can see the dots of different size of the ones that have been identified and monitored this past year. And we'd also looked at another map where we took the information on the spotted salamander egg masses, the counts of those masses at each pool, and again we looked at the size of the dots represent the very small dots were very few, 1 to 4, 1 to 5 egg masses were seen in a pool. So those are the very smallest dots on these. And whereas it goes up to the largest dot, as you can see out in Douthat, where we have our western chapter that got involved, Douthat has a very successful pool out there as far as producing egg masses. And that large dot, the large dots we do have out there were well over 100, some of them a little over 200 egg masses in those pools. So it's pretty interesting to see the numbers of egg masses that some folks have been finding. So these are some examples of maps we can do, and we played around with making even more, but we're just showing you a few today of things that you can look at on the maps with all that data. And for the next steps, for any Master Naturalist chapters that are interested, chapter leaders are encouraged to contact Lee or Ann, and you can contact me as well. All of our information is given on the last slide, but we do have to have that contact because training is required for this to happen. Volunteers or Master Naturalists will need to be trained on species identification. That's one thing we worked on last year. We had some workshops and we talked to folks about identifying the salamanders, the frogs, and some of the invertebrates. And this data, because we want to try to get it as correct as possible, we will still have, once we get that data in, some QA/QC of the data. In fact, I still need to go through some of the data that we've collected this past year to double check some of the species that were recorded so that we can use them as correct data. And then another thing we need to train on, and it was something that we mentioned, we did go over in the workshops this past year, sanitation protocols or sterilization of the equipment and gear. There's been a lot of emerging wildlife diseases. Some of the big ones on the radar are ranavirus, chytrid fungus, and another new one that could potentially be spread in vernal pools is the snake fungal disease. because we do have those guys around those sometimes. But the main thing is we want to make sure that equipment and gear is properly sterilized when you're going from one pool to another, so we're not unnaturally spreading diseases to these animals and habitat. You know, they need all the help they can get, basically, to prevent these diseases from wiping out populations. Another thing to be aware of is whether or not permits would be needed for your activity. We have, if volunteers do want to go and actually get in the pools and collect animals to identify them and stir up the habitat, basically, we do require a scientific collection permit from Game and Inland Fisheries. However, if you're going to a site, also too, if you're going on these public lands, there may be permits required by the entities that own those lands. So if you're going to a state park, you need to check with the folks there. With Department of Conservation and Recreation may require a permit. Or in a lot of cases at these sites, the resource managers, if you're working with them, they may already have all the permits needed, and they can just add you on as sub-permittees, and so they can take care of it that way. It all depends on the situation and the site and who owns it. So something to be aware of. We just need to address that so we make sure everybody's doing what they're supposed to and nothing illegal. But the permits are important too. At least I know with the scientific collection permits in my agency, we actually use the data that's reported to us annually directly in our databases anyways, but we're also going to get it this way as well through this project.
That is just about the end of our presentation, although two things have happened very recently that I wanted to mention that actually are adding a lot of more interesting options to the project. One of our partners, the Department of Forestry, I've been in contact with them, and they are interested in having a large number of their state forests looked at in terms of searching for these pools or going to pools that they know the locations of and actually collecting data from. They are going to be open to small groups going into the forests in central and eastern Virginia, and it's going to be about 57,000 acres that they are interested in having looked at. So
That's a piece of cake,
you
Ann.
gotta get your shoes on.
Piece of cake.
Maybe we'll get it by next
Right.
year. The other thing, I was recently contacted by someone that you may all know, Mike Hazlett, who is one of the original Virginia vernal pool enthusiasts in the central and more western part of the state. And he is today actually at a workshop up in Delaware that is being put on by the North Atlantic Landscape Conservation Cooperative in conjunction with the Vermont Center for Ecosystem Studies, or Eco Studies. The NALCC gave a grant last year of $100,000 to the Vermont Center for Eco Studies to actually compile a large database of all of the pools in the North Atlantic region. Virginia actually makes it into the North Atlantic region, a portion of Virginia, and it goes up through Maine and actually up into Canada. They are a group that is interested in marrying up hard scientific research with management and conservation on the ground groups and practices to look at real large-scale issues. And vernal pools have fallen onto their radar. Up north, there's several states that have done really pretty comprehensive studies of vernal pools within their states, but they want to pull all of that data together under one roof so that it can be available to researchers and land managers to look at large-scale issues like climate change or distributions or many of the number of things that are impacting these systems. Through them, I contacted them and they've gotten back to us about Virginia. They're extremely interested in any and all data from Virginia that we can provide, and that goes statewide, not just for the area that's covered within their boundary region of the North Atlantic. They are developing some cutting-edge resources, technologies to identify pools on the landscape, and they're going to share that information with everybody to come up with, I guess, an overall approach to what kind of data do you want to collect, how do you want to collect it, how can you use these technologies, et cetera, et cetera. So it's a neat first, for us in Virginia, this is a first chance to get connected with them and really do maybe a comprehensive inventory throughout the state on these systems and to benefit from what's already been worked up, as we move forward with it. So,
And I have a question about that. Do you know if the protocol that you've been using for your project is a similar protocol to what other states have used?
yeah, it is. We based ours on both Massachusetts data sheets and Maine's data sheets. All of these, it's a relatively small group of researchers that work on these systems, and they all.
I'm going to stop it there right now. They're just going through question and answer, and you can always go to the State Virginia Master Naturalist website and listen to the questions then. I want to go through some of the species that is what's called obligates in the vernal pools, and then I'll go over some of the ways to look for vernal pools, and I'll show you some of the handouts that I'm going to be making available to you. So let me go to, okay, what are we doing? Okay, there. Wait a minute. Okay, yeah, I think this is it. Judy. Okay, are you muted or unmuted?
I am unmuted now.
Okay. Since Judy has had so much experience right now and she's going to be giving a field trip tomorrow, we'll go through this for the species and that identification and how to identify them. There are all sorts of other websites that give information on how to identify the eggs and the tadpoles, and I've got those in a handout for information resources, but this is what Ann Wright and Susan Watson gave to us a few years ago. So this is basically what they were talking about for what is a vernal pool. And as she said, most of the time, they are on an annual cycle, but occasionally, if it's a very rainy year or something, they might not dry up during the summertime. They might last 2 years or something. And then if after the second year, then it gets dry again, they might dry up again. Sometimes if it's very dry years, then they might not get as big, or they might not even happen. So it kind of goes with the weather cycles and everything too, and the climate cycles and that. And this is what she showed to us before. Okay, and this is some of the reasons why we should care. Also, they are indicator species of how healthy the environment is. And that it is important to us is that They can help us understand if there's polluted water, like in groundwater or something. And if we're drinking the groundwater, this is one way for us to know that it's been polluted or something like that. And a lot of them have a lot of predators coming to the vernal pools, and it's just the cycle of life in that. Okay. And okay, Judy, you want to go through the obligate species then here?
I can speak to 3 of them that I am familiar with. The ones that we have in our pools, we monitor at Claytor Lake and Fenwick Mines. And we have marbled salamanders, which are the smallest. They're 4.5 inches up to 4.5 inches. The adults have a black body, black belly.
I'll
They
be
have
showing you
white
photos after this.
Are there photos in the thing?
Yes. Mhm.
Oh, let's look at them then
Okay.
and talk about them as we get the photos.
Okay. So this is some of the
Maybe-
salamanders here.
The ones that I know are the Jefferson, the spotted, and the marbled. We don't have the others in our pools. So this is the marbled salamander. The marbled salamander's got a little bit different life cycle than the others. Female marbled salamander will lay her eggs under a log in an area that's going to be a vernal pool that's going to be filled with water. She will stay with them and protect them until the eggs hatch and there's water there. And then she goes back. All of them are what we call fossorial. They live underground. She goes back out into the woods, and the marbled salamander babies, larvae, actually live in the pool through the winter. So if the whole thing freezes over, they could be killed. But they're the first ones there in the spring, and they can take advantage of the other salamanders' egg masses. They can eat their eggs. So it's kind of a mixed blessing the way they do things. The one on the top is a female, and the one on the bottom is a male. They've got this bone-shaped pattern on their backs. The young have spots down the sides. They're kind of they're dark. They've got light spots down their sides. They're the first ones you're going to see in the pool. Like I said, they're hatching out in the winter even. And so they'll be the first ones. The other salamanders are bigger, but hopefully the marbleds can be out of there by the time they start getting in there. The spotted salamander is a much larger salamander. They're up to 9 inches. The adults are black with yellow or orange spots. The larvae are brown to gray they also have lines of spots down the side. And they have tiny black dots on their white throat. I actually have not for sure seen a spotted salamander larvae yet, but we do have spotted salamanders in many of our pools. The spotted salamander and the Jeffersons, the little corner on the bottom corner there, the spermatophores, the males come to the pools first, and they lay these spermatophores down, and the females will pick those up and use those to fertilize their eggs. Is there a picture of egg masses? More than that one? Okay. The egg masses of the spotted salamanders are like baseball size or larger. They're laid a lot of times in clumps. One of the things the Vernal Pool Project wants us to look at is how many that are clear and how many that are milky. There's no difference in viability of those. They also, some of them have algae in them, and they'll be green. And that's another data point that they want to look at with the spotted salamanders.
The algae, they do a work as a photosynthesis, and they help each other, symbiotic relationship. So the algae in the eggs does not hurt them or anything.
Right. And that's,
Ah,
there's a green one.
looky.
You can see those little developing salamanders in there. And in the pools at Fenwick Mines, at least, we'll see these spotted salamander egg masses with marbled salamanders and newts going through them and eating those little larvae before they're even hatched. They also go after the wood frog eggs. The Jefferson salamander on the left is the one that we have in our pools. The adults get up to about 7 inches. They're gray, and you can see those kind of spots. They're silver or bluish spots that go down the sides. I have not seen an adult of these, but I have seen the larvae. The larvae they're olive gray, and they've got small yellow spots on their tails. The Jefferson salamander mass is smaller. It's more of golf ball size, and sometimes they're kind of tubular if they're laid out on a stick. They do lay them in clumps. We've got a bunch of salamander eggs in one of our pools right now. Or, well, we did a week ago. They may be hatched now. They're a lot smaller than the spotted salamander eggs. And if you check the kind of the texture, the spotted salamander eggs are kind of gelatinous, whereas the Jefferson salamander eggs are more, they're looser, they're slimier, I guess. I haven't picked them up, but that's what they're supposed to feel like. The other salamanders, I don't know whether the Roanoke group will have them in their area or not, but I encourage you to look them up. We have the mole salamander, the tiger salamander, and maybe salamanders in Virginia. We don't have those in our area, so I'm not real familiar with them. The vernal pool data sheets want to know about the marbled salamanders and the spotted and the Jeffersons. The wood frog is another obligate. By obligate, we mean these animals only breed in vernal pools. There's a lot less predation in most of the pools. There's no fish. They're not connected to any other body of water, so there's no fish.
Occasionally, like in the springtime, when the streams overflow, then that can create vernal pools, which will then get separated when the water levels go down to that.
Yeah, they're called intermittent streams, and that's what we have at Fenwick Mines, is intermittent streams. But when those vernal pools dry up, those fish that happen to end up in there are going to die. The wood frogs are calling right now. They sound like ducks. The males come to the pools and wait for the females, and they do the amplexus thing. Males are fertilizing the eggs. The wood frogs lay their eggs in large rafts that tend to be near the surface of the water, and they look almost like bubbles on the surface of the water. Wow. So they are breeding right now. The Jeffersons are laying now. The spotteds, I think, are getting ready to start laying their eggs now. This is the eastern spadefoot. Again, I don't have any experience with this guy at all, but
It looks like it's just one county near us, so.
yeah, I don't know what county that is.
Maybe it's Roanoke.
Could be.
So
Close
maybe
in.
Roanoke people will be able to find them.
Here's hoping. That'd be
Mhm.
pretty cool.
Ah,
Not to say that there are no predators in a vernal pool. Like I said, the marbled salamanders are in there eating wood frog eggs and eating the spotted salamander eggs. This is a barred owl. Barred owls like to live near water, and they will eat salamanders and crayfish and all sorts of things. My big pool, what we call it the entrance pool, we have turtles. We have a bunch of different species of frogs. We've got bullfrog, green frog, spring peeper, a lot of different insect species. One of these days, I'm going to figure out how to identify all the insect species in that pool. We have a green heron that hangs out there. just all kinds of things eating all these baby salamanders. So there's not to say there's no predators, but
Well,
there's
that's
no
why they like,
fish.
that's why they lay so many eggs, you know, like fish is doing that then. So.
Yeah, it's estimated that 1% of those eggs will grow to adults. So they're pretty fragile. We do have this, we found out last year in one of our pools, we do have this little crustacean called fairy shrimp. Apparently the Virginia has two species. There's a spring fairy shrimp and the summer fairy shrimp. And Mike Hazlett thinks that we have the summer ones in what we call the dump pool. We found them last year. They're really cool. But this is a crustacean that lives in vernal pools. They're carried like on duck feathers and that kind of thing from pool to pool. So we're watching for them in our other pools. But they basically, when the conditions are right, they hatch. They go through their whole life cycle. They lay their eggs. Their eggs are laid in the muck in the bottom of the pool. The pool dries up, and they can lay there for years before they hatch again. And so it's a real short life cycle, and they're vernal pool obligates as well. And they're a crustacean, but they're really cool. Don't know anything about clam shrimp, but that's another vernal pool obligate.
Okay, and they didn't talk about the areas around the vernal pools, but you got 3 different areas around the vernal pools. One is where the depression itself is, where the water is. Then about 100 feet out around that is what's called the seasonal pool envelope. That's where you might have some trees, the grasses and everything. And then beyond that, for the next 1,000 feet, that's a terrestrial habitat. You need all 3 of these in order for the vernal pool to survive. The vernal pool itself, the water cannot survive without the woodland area around it, because the adult species don't stay in the pond, of course, because it's going to dry up. They live in the forest, like the spring peepers and the wood frogs and everything. The adults go back and live in the forest. And if you cut down all the forest and still keep the vernal pool, that's not going to help either, because you destroyed the environment for the adults. So if there's no adults, there's going to be no eggs or babies. So that's another thing that they're trying to work out. I think, as far as I'm aware, Virginia does not have any regulatory laws saying that you can't destroy vernal pools or anything. That's why, one of the reasons why we're collecting this data for the state agencies is that they can find out where the vernal pools are, what's there, and then they might eventually in time, if they can convince the legislatures in that, like it's been done in Massachusetts, they have laws for the developers in that if they can't destroy ponds that are vernal pools that are so big or in such and such a place. So they are protected in some of the states already, but not so far in Virginia, but maybe with our efforts, it'll help anyways. Yeah, and most of the vernal pools are real small, but right now underneath Virginia law, it's very restricted about how they can define it. And as I was saying, I don't think they have any legal requirements of who can build wherever. And this is what I was trying to explain before, is that they all interdepend upon each other, the 3 different environments. And some of these regulations would be like logging and that too, how close they can get to the vernal pools and that, but they'll need more data in that anyways. And this is just some of the stuff that they were showing us of how they initially did this. And you need to work in groups of 2 at least. They don't want people going out by themselves for security reasons and that. There is some monitoring on private land. Mainly it's where the master naturalists live, or they have friends that are living that give permission to go on the private property and monitor them. But basically, the state wants us to stay with the public lands and that. Now, there are different ways to find out where the vernal pools are. Some of it they could do like with airplane photos and that, or topo maps, or even on the ground. About 4 or 5 years ago, another master naturalist and I went to one of the nature conservancy parks. I can't remember the name, but it's closed, and we had to get permission to go in there anyways. And they didn't know if there's any vernal pools or not, but it's got a nice little stream and everything. And the other master naturalist went like about 50 foot from the stream, and I went like about 100 foot from the stream. And we kept walking along the stream. And I finally did find a vernal pool, although it might really be a spring, but anyways, counted as a vernal pool. And so that's one way, is to look in potential areas where you think that they might be. It's generally like in low-lying areas, and generally near streams and that, which kind of makes sense. So there's several different ways to find vernal pools. And I will show you a copy of the data sheet afterwards so you get some more information. And we'll go through briefly the sitsci.org website. I think Lee did a pretty good overview of how you enter data into it and that. Now, what basically I have to do is, after you finish the class and the field trip, I will send your name to the state master naturalist, and then you'll be able to register with SitSci, but you can't do that until I send in your name and that. And then after that, if you're found a new vernal pool and it's not in the sitsci.org website, you need to send whoever's the current manager of the data set, you need to send them the latitude and longitude, give it a name and some other items. Then they create a location in the website where you can enter the data, but you can't do that until you get the site registered in that. And there's another handout for that anyways. Okay, and this is just showing some more stuff. Okay, this is the North Atlantic thing. I don't know what the current status of our working with them is, because it's been, let's see, the video that we watched is back October 2014, so it's later now. And the sitsci.org website we've kept private only to our own master naturalist members that get registered, because they don't want the public to know where the vernal pool sites are, which is the opposite of what Massachusetts does. They get the school kids and Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts going into the field, finding the vernal pools and monitoring them and collecting the data. So apparently they've got their citizens aware enough that the vernal pools are necessary and not to destroy them and everything, but we haven't done it so far in Virginia, but we're still starting up slowly in that. Okay, so this is, as I was mentioning earlier, the salamanders and frogs, because they got permeable skin, is they are health indicators. Like they're very sensitive to any toxins, to any of our drugs or whatever that get into the groundwater and that, road salts, oil pollution, and so they can have malformations, they can have like fewer toes, they can have tumors. So that's another thing that they want noted and recorded, probably photos too. Also in the citsci.org website, I don't know if they got anywhere recorded in there about the size of the photos, but there's a size limit. And if you can't get your photo downloaded, then that's probably the reason it's too large or something, and you need to make it smaller. And this is with some of the amphibian diseases they were mentioning is why we have to sterilize our boots, our gear, which includes the nets. It includes any containers that you put the specimens in, and you have to do that between pools that are in different locations. It depends upon how close they are. If the vernal pools are like only 100 foot apart, then they're probably got the same groundwater and everything. So it probably wouldn't be a big deal. But if it's like in different parks or something, then you do need to sterilize. And I'll show you in the resources portion of the citsci.org, it does have a document that tells you how to mix up the chemicals in that. Bleach, yes. Okay, that's another one. Yeah, here's the disinfection protocols. So what I basically do is if I'm going to visit 2 or more vernal pools in the same day and they're far enough apart so that I have to get sterilized in that in between. After the first pool is I would sterilize the boots, set them out in the sunshine like for 10 or 15 minutes. And I have a spray bottle, one with the bleach in it and another one with water in it. So just spraying it with a water bottle in that real good, letting it dry, and then away from the water. Don't get near the water when you're hosing off the bleach solution in that. You don't want that to go down into the vernal pools and that, but stay far enough away, wash it off so that it doesn't get into the next pool. And basically, most of the time, we do not want to go into the pools themselves because that's going to destroy habitats. You might be stepping on some of the salamanders that you want to know about or some of the eggs. We only go out there if there's no way to view it from the shore, which Judy will show you tomorrow anyways. And there's a chart with different Clorox bleach and some other stuff anyways. And here's the Facebook page. I've got that in my information resources handout. Oh, one of the things that we didn't go over was how to tell apart salamander eggs from frog and toad eggs. Toad eggs are laid in strings. So you can tell them apart from the frogs, which lay their eggs in clumps. Now salamanders are generally in clumps, but they don't have, the eggs are not individually separated. The salamanders have a big jelly mass around the whole mass of them. So before you can stick your finger in the egg layer or something, you've got to go through the gelatinous layer, which you don't do with the frog and the toad eggs. They're like individual eggs by themselves, but kind of clumped together in that. Okay.
Can I interject something?
Yes, go ahead.
Before the field trip tomorrow, just in the interest of protecting my pools, I'm going to ask that if you're not wearing like new muck boots or whatever, that you do bleach your boots before you come, please. Our pools are close enough together that we don't feel like we need to bleach in between. They're all pretty close together. But just in the interest of keeping stuff from outside the park from coming in, please do bleach your muck boots before you come tomorrow.
Another interesting fact about the wood frogs is that they're the earliest ones to come out with the weather. basically because they got a sort of natural antifreeze in their bodies so that they could actually freeze solid and then come back to life. So that's a distinct advantage for them to get it out there earlier than the other frogs in that. So if they get their eggs laid and their tadpoles growing, then hopefully they got a better chance to change into the adult frogs before it dries up in that. Okay, let me show you. I'm going to be inviting you to a Google Drive of my own, which, let me see if I can get to it. Oh, okay, we're there, okay, there. Which it's got several handouts in it, and I'll be inviting you that to you tonight. We are recording this, so hopefully it'll be given to me tonight, and I'll be able to upload it to this thing here anyways. So I'll go through these briefly. The PowerPoint was what we just looked at with the various obligate species. A good place to look for information is the Virginia Herpetological Society. And this one is just the example of what they have, which is very extensive for each of them in that. They also include snakes and turtles because those are herps too. Okay, this one, come on. Gonna do anything? You got to hit it right correctly. This is from one of the other publications that I got listed, my information resources handout. This is Virginia frogs. I think this might be out of the Virginia Herpetological Society website. I'm not certain, but it goes through the different frogs. It is? Okay, good. And it tells you like the American bullfrog doesn't start calling or breeding until Mayish. And they're in deep water, so, but then the wood frogs, as you can see, is one of the early ones, and the spring peeper is an early one too, but it looks like the wood frog is earlier. And I've just started hearing spring peepers, like 1 or 2 or something. So this kind of lets you know if you go there in the evening and that, what frogs are probably breeding in your vernal pool and that. Okay. Okay, this one has got some of the things to bring to the vernal pool, like your data sheet, pen or pencil, cell phone or camera to take pictures. If you have a GPS unit, a separate one, or sometimes your smartphone has an app that will get the latitude and longitude coordinates that you need for your initial registration of the vernal pool. Notebook to write down anything else. Wading boots, and then I bring spray bottles to disinfect the boots, as I was mentioning. Tape measure or digital ruler. They want you to estimate the length and width of the pools, and if you're not good at estimating distances, I'm not, then you need something in addition to help you measure.
Range finders are great.
Oh, really good. Okay. Dip net, and those you can generally find in like a pet store, like PetSmart or Petco or something like that. You get the larger sized one. You need some kind of trays to put your netted specimens into. I use the white dish pans. Judy uses what, shoe boxes you were saying?
Yeah, plastic shoe boxes.
Mm-hmm. And so like it works real good if you got like a white colored one, and then you've got the darker colored wildlife in there, you can see real good. If you want to bring in field guides or hardcover books, or if you've got an app on your phone or something. Magnifying lenses are good for the smaller invertebrates in that. Bug spray, binoculars in case you see any wildlife, because you could, in your comments section, you could put down like any ducks you saw, the turtles you saw. Judy saw one time a bunch of deer wading through the vernal pool, so.
That was frog watch.
Yeah. And then some people used polarized sunglasses to see into the water. So it, yeah, so you can see into it against the glare anyways. Okay. Then I've got my handout for various websites and books that you can use in addition. So this is the Virginia Naturalists, the Facebook and everything. These are some of the other Virginia web pool, vernal pool websites. Now, Michael Hazlitt did give a talk, a Zoom talk on February 22nd to the Blue Ridge Wildflower Society, which is the Roanoke chapter of the Virginia Native Plant Society. That was partially recorded, and I think I've got it down below somewheres. And he's got a handout of resources too, which I've got below here. And this is some of the other videos, and there's a documentary on fairy shrimps and vernal pools. That's very nice. Then this is his talk, his handout. And Judy McCord last year created and starred in about a 9-minute video about the vernal pools at Claytor Lake, which got put up on the Virginia State Park website, along with others, which was when I think the parks were shut down and nobody could go there. So this is a way of advertising what was in the parks and that. And there's several other books, and there's DVDs online. Those are real good. There's even a guide to creating vernal pools. So there's all sorts of information here, and along with Mike Hazlitt's. Okay.
Is that one listed?
Oh, okay. What have you got there? Oh, yes. Yeah, that is listed, I believe.
Okay.
Okay. Whoops, get back here. No, get out of there so I can get to my thing. Okay. Okay, that's Mike Hazlitt's handout. Let's see. Oh, okay. I've made a cheat sheet here in case you want to listen to the frogs so you know what's at your vernal pools if you can't ID the eggs or whatever. So according to the Virginia Herpetological website, there are 15 frogs and toads in the Newer Valley region. And I've listed them here, and a cheat sheet for how their songs sound. As Judy said, the wood frogs sound like ducks quacking. Other ones sound like banjo string plucking, running your finger along a comb. And I think everybody knows what the peepers sound like. And there's several websites too that give you the sounds of each of them, so you can listen to them there too. Okay. Oh, okay. Let's see. Okay, how to do vernal pool surveys. I've written something up here. You first need to register it with the sitsci.org. Well, you need to register itself with the sitsci.org after I send them your names. Then they had been doing each of their categories by years, but I think they stopped doing that in 2016, and they're just doing for the next several years together. You need to print out the data sheet and bring that with you. This is where you going to your first vernal pool, and it's not in the sitsci, so you have to decide on a simple name for it. Disinfect the boots. You need more than one person. Prefer daylight so you don't step on anything, but you're still trying to stay out of the pool if possible. 4 ways to observe You could just watch what's in the water. You can use a stick or ruler to gently push around leaves and see if there's anything underneath it. You can use a net and place specimens in a container so you can observe them and figure out what they are. But do not use a bottle trap. Apparently, the salamanders could die in there and drown in that. And our chapter can get banned if anybody uses those bottle traps to catch them. They do not want any endangered salamanders or anything drowning in those. So those are strictly forbidden. Okay.
Another thing that we do often is the adult salamanders don't stay in the pools. They go there to breed and then they go back to the woods. So we flip logs. You always make sure you put the log back where you found it because there's a whole habitat underneath those logs. But we flip logs and see if we can find salamanders and such under the logs around the pools.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay, here's a data sheet that he was talking about. Oops, that's not it. Woohoo. Okay, that's not it. Okay, that's okay. Let me see if I got it mixed up.
You sent it to me. What'd you do with it?
I don't know. Okay, it's mirrored. Okay, we've looked at those, Okay, then I'm gonna have to replace it. Okay, what
I
I'll
will
do,
have data sheets for you for tomorrow.
yeah. We'll briefly go into the sitsci.org database. You can see what it looks like. Okay, as soon as there.
Brenda.
Mhm.
Brenda,
Yes.
I have a question.
Okay, go ahead.
Do you have the or did you forward on to people the download from the North American Nature Photographer Association of the most amazing photography underwater, principally of
That might
vernal
be my
pools?
yeah.
No, that's not my caselets.
Oh, it is? No, but I mean, it might be in his resources handout. Let me see.
Oh, yeah, it is.
It is? Okay.
It's okay. Just a word about that. It's a very large download, like 75 megs. But when you see the pictures, they are completely amazing. The best photography I've ever seen of vernal pools, and very inspiring and helpful for identification purposes.
Okay, so after you get registered, you'll need to log in each time. Okay, so this is the last one that they've got for the 2016. It's going obviously through 2021, as you can see down here, that they've been recording it since, well, since January, it looks like. So this is all statewide in that. Let's see. And the current manager is Tony Daniel. If you've got any questions about how to enter stuff or something not understanding it, you can contact him to see if you can get it answered. 183 members for between 2016 and 2021, just to let you know. 487 locations, which is good. Okay. So you can view the data here. Let's take a look at this one. This is.
Look at Bedtree.
What do you want?
Pulaski, Bedtree.
Is it here?
Not on that page.
Oh, okay. I can search by location. Which one do you want to?
Pulaski.
Okay, Pulaski. Okay. Oh, yes. Ooh, dump pool. Have you got anything in there?
Yeah.
Ooh, okay. This is the dump pool she was talking about that's got the fairy shrimp at it. So apparently there's 4 observations. We can view them. So this gives the latitude and longitude. And let's see. This went from May 31st. May 31st was when.
Yeah, view May 31st.
Oh, okay.
That's when we first found the shrimp and realized that it was a vernal pool that we needed to monitor.
And did you put?
I didn't put photos on that one.
Oh, okay.
I need to go back and do that, but
Mm-hmm. So you had American toads.
yeah.
Mm-hmm. So indicator species present. So that would be what, the obligate species?
The fairy shrimp in that
yes.
on that day.
Yeah, there. Mm-hmm. Okay, no salamander larvae.
There were Jefferson salamanders before that, earlier in the year, but that we were told were there. But by the time we went and looked for them, the pool was gone. They were not successful. I expect we will find Jefferson salamanders larvae tomorrow. I'm looking forward to seeing them.
Okay, good.
Or at least the eggs still.
Now for the hydro period, if you don't know if it dries up or not, there are different, let's go through the, okay, we have to go back to project profile. Okay, we'll go to resources. That's where there's a copy of the disinfection protocol vernal pool data sheet. So I've got to put that back into my Google Drive where it should go. But this is, hey, you're not there either? That's not nice. Okay, well, I guess I don't get to show you the data sheet today then. But it's got the questions that Lee was talking about that he was showing you anyways. Well, okay, maybe we can do the submit data thing. Yeah. Enter data. Yeah, the date, comments. You can put in whatever comments you want. You'll need to put in the latitude, longitude. And this is where he's showing us where the species were listed. So it's got going through all of the frogs and this one. This one is listing salamanders. Okay, what's this one? This one's turtles. So apparently they got it by different species anyways. Toads.
As you enter a species in each of those, it gives you another choice to add a second species from there as well. So, you know, it's not like you can enter one species. If you have 3 or 4 of salamanders or 2 or 3 of frogs, it drops down so to allow you to enter in more.
Report it. You see report another?
Yes, there it is right there. Report another. Okay. They don't include any invertebrates here, but you could put that into your comments if you find like dragonfly larvae or caddisfly nymphs or water boatmen or whatever. And some of the books do have a chapter on the invertebrates anyways, so they've got pictures and everything. So they want to know the pool status, if it was field verified, if you went out into the actual field, or a potential means you were thinking that it was on a map or something, found it that way. Pool type, isolated is generally what ours is. Sometimes it's human made. We don't have the Delmarva Bay or the Carolina Bay or the coastal plain bay. Since we're in the mountains here, if you've gotten permission, name of the county, if there's a city nearby. And this is where he was showing the obligate species and that, then if you saw them or not.
And there's drop-down menus in all of those.
Yeah, like, let's see. Yeah, yes or no if you saw spermatophores, or yeah, yes or no, larvae on that. Maximum width and depth, well, that depends upon if it's at the beginning of spring or the end of spring or later in the summer before it dries up. I don't think they give us a certain number of times that you need to visit the vernal pool, but I'd say what, twice a month or maybe more, Judy, or and
Just
Bruce?
as often as you can get out. We're citizen scientists. We can't,
Mhm.
we have to live too.
Mhm.
But we try to get out at least 3 or 4 times during the season to all our pools, if not more.
Mhm. This is where you can enter photos here. There was a place where, oh, I know. They said that they wanted a preferred a sketch of the pool, and it shows you where there's stumps or where there's egg masses in that. And then you could take a photo of that and put that in one of these photos here to have your sketch of the pool in that. Okay, let's see, what else do we have? Back to project profile. When I invite you to the Google Drive tonight to look at those handouts that I prepared and these PowerPoint and the information resources handouts, I'll also be working on one for vernal pools that need to be adopted to have somebody monitor them. Right
Oh,
now.
Bruce,
Mhm.
you need to tell her about that one.
Which one?
Bruce, are you still on?
Well, okay, there's one in Blacksburg as somebody's homemade vernal pool, so that will be in the handout. Then Judy and Mac and a couple other people, Chris, are monitoring the vernal pools at Clear Lake State Park, but they welcome anybody that wants to go with them. Bruce Grimes is doing the ones at Fenton Mines. That's closer to Roanoke, so if you want to help Bruce with that, that's fine. I've given email addresses, a couple of others around Pendappus Pond. There's possibilities, and other ones near the Mountain Lake area that people have suggested would be good. So there's potential areas if you want to do some walking through in that and see if you can find any more anyways. That's probably the best way, is just to start walking and see if you can find one. Or if somebody knows about one. So anyways, there'll be some in there that you can pick and choose. Let's see, what time is it? Okay, anybody got any questions right now? Let me stop sharing then. Okay, you'll have to unmute yourselves if you have questions, it looks like. Don, did you say that you're pretty good with invertebrates?
Unmute yourself.
I've done stream monitoring. Of course, that's, some crossover there.
Mm-hmm.
So I know the basics.
Okay.
Hey Judy, this is Kevin and Carrie. You mentioned something about going out to Fenwick Mines. Do you have just something in mind as far as a date? Or is it too soon to ask that question?
Bruce?
The current plan is the weekend of the 20th.
Okay.
Weather dependent.
I tell you what, if you're interested in doing the everybody has my email address, correct?
I do.
Okay. If you're interested in doing the Fenwick Mines, if you can't do tomorrow, or if you're interested in going out there, contact me and we'll get the details to you.
Okay, thank you.
Uh-huh.
Okay, if you can't go to the field trip tomorrow, you can go on another one, Fenwick, or you can ask anybody else when you look at the handout for adopted vernal pools and that. So you can go with anybody to go on a field trip to get registered in that anyways.
Hey, Brenda,
Mhm.
is Butch doing the vernal pool up at Audie Murphy?
Haven't seen him doing it lately, so he might need somebody to take it over.
Okay.
I know he was doing it with his grandson a few years ago, but I haven't seen anything lately in the SitSide database.
I'll
So,
look and see on the website. I forgot about to do that.
yeah,
It's just called Audie Murphy, isn't it?
I think so. I think so. Okay, let me see what else. Yeah, when you're sterilizing, you need to clean the mud off your boots first, because otherwise the bleach won't get down to it.
Barb, is the Audie Murphy pool off of the Appalachian Trail near the monument, or is?
Yes, it's very close to the monument.
And on the right-hand side, when you're walking toward the monument, you'll see it. It's pretty close. What is it, 20 foot off the trail? And it's what, 30 foot wide or more? Or
It's well, I don't know if that much. It's
okay.
good sized, and it seems to always have water in it. Or at least any time I've been there,
So what do
there's
you
been water.
access that? Do you go to Dragon's Tooth? And I mean, I'm trying to, no. I'm trying to think. Anyway,
It's out on, well, when you go out on, is it Mount Tabor? And then before you get to 311
okay,
is Audie Murphy.
okay.
So it's a good, I think it's nearly half an hour from the north side of Blacksburg. So it's got to be headed your way.
Yeah.
Uh-oh. I have to answer the door. I'm going away for a minute.
Okay.
There is a vernal pool in Bottom Creek Gorge. Brenda, is that correct?
Yes, when I went there last spring, it was with a hike with was it the Master Naturalist? And some of the Roanoke people went there. And the one pool that I knew about, well, I think a log had come down or something. So it wasn't as big as it used to be, but there could be other places there too. So it won't hurt to check. That'll be closer to the Roanoke chapter in that. I know there's about 15 of you here now, and I think there's going to be a 16th one. He's at Claytor Lake State Park right now camping today. So he was going to go on the field trip. And somebody said, I think I remember somebody saying that one of the Roanoke libraries has got a vernal pool next to it or something. And there'll be other areas too. So when I was first started this back in 2015, I was contacting the local towns and parks and rec, and most of them didn't know what a vernal pool was. So they didn't realize if they had any or not. There's a couple of them at the Heritage Park, the old Brown Farm, that needs to be monitored again. People come and go with monitoring that.
Have they ever found obligates in them?
I don't think so, but there's somebody there that has been doing it every week for the last several years, but the Master Naturalist have been off and on monitoring that one. Oh, so some of the, like the National Forest is a good place to check, like Pandapus. Um, let's see, where else? Yeah, it's for the frog watch when you're going after dark that you got to get permission for some of these town parks and that. They don't want you going out after dark and that. So I've got that on the no, that's on the instructions for the frog watch. But anyways, let's see. Any other questions? Tomorrow's field trip starts at what, 1 o'clock, was it?
1 o'clock tomorrow. I put directions to the park in my email, and we'll just meet. There's a parking lot just inside the park on the right that we'll meet at 1 p.m. I don't know if I'm going to have the person in the contact station give your hang tags, or if I'll have them let the contact persons know when you go through there that you are with this class and you will get in free, but I do have to collect the hang tags at the end of the day. You don't get to keep them, sorry, unless you're going to be volunteering out there later, and I'll give them back.
Mm-hmm. One of the other volunteer projects at the park is,
excuse me?
One of the other volunteer projects at the park is weeding pollinator gardens that were planted last Mother's Day. So if you want to get in for free, then you can let them know that you're going to be weeding the pollinator gardens and that. So, and I don't know if the Discovery Center is going to be open this year or not.
I don't think so. We might have a table outside, but I don't know.
Yeah, it's still.
We haven't decided.
Mm-hmm.
Judy, what do you do if you're already here?
You are here.
I am here.
I'll meet you in the parking lot by the contact station.
All right, sounds good.
I have a quick question.
Mm-hmm.
And a comment. So I know a couple places in Jefferson west of Pandapis toward McCoy that are good places to look. There's a particularly interesting one that's at high elevation too, if anybody's interested in teaming up. But the question is, for obvious safety reasons, we're supposed to do this as a team. You have to be with one other person. Does that other person have to be a master naturalist in case we can't coordinate, or just as long as you're with somebody?
Anybody, because you'll be the one that'll be entering the data.
Exactly, right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So anybody.
We tend to work as a team. There's 4 of us that work together to do both Fenwick and Claytor Lake. It's always good to know somebody can fish me out if I fall in the entrance pool.
Or can take good pictures of it.
Ben, you're going to want a walking stick or something.
Oh yeah, got it covered, and I'll bleach it too.
Thank you.
And on the ones that Brenda's going to hand out information on, if it's on private property particularly, it really needs to be coordinated back through Brenda so that, we don't have 5 people going up to the property owner. It needs to be one person handling that pool responsible. And then, you have your team arrive all at once. You don't straggle through the guy's property.
And you probably should let him know ahead of time when you want to do it, so they'll know that it's not trespassers or anything. So yeah, I'll have to set up something for people to sign up for some of these pools and that need to be adopted. I'll have to work on that anyway. So yes, but what Bruce says, we need to get coordinated anyways.
I also believe there was one or more vernal pool down Craig Creek, the early stretches there off of 460 as you're heading north.
Yeah, Dave Jenkins was doing those, but I don't think he's done them in the last few years. So
so I'm wondering if somebody might want to pick up that area. I know Barb, I talked to Barb Glazer about doing that.
Once I remembered after we talked that once I did try to find it and I couldn't another year in 17 when I last did this volunteer work. So I'll look again, especially if I'm going to do the one that's on my friend's property over there in Giles.
Pool.
But I need a partner too.
Okay, any other questions?
Anybody have any questions about tomorrow?
Oh,
1 o'clock.
1 o'clock.
I assume we're gonna have to wear a mask and everything then?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you, Brenda.
What we'll try to do
Mhm.
is we'll split into 2 groups. And one group will go do the entrance pool and Bear Drive, and the other group will do the dump and Bent Tree. So we have 4 pools over there. We'll kind of swap places midway, and this is the hope anyway. And so you guys will all get to see all 4 pools if you want to. And whatever we have found the first time will still be there where we can look at it when you go out the second time. So that you'll monitor 2 pools and then just look at the other 2 and see what we found in the other 2, if you want to.
And if they're not frozen too, so.
I have hopes. Dump pools in the sun.
Okay.
Entrance pool's pretty big.
Mm-hmm.
And should everybody be bringing a clipboard, because there's going to be the sheets, the report sheets, so they can
Yeah.
familiarize
Yeah, I
themselves
put that-
with them?
Yeah, I didn't send you my email, I don't think, Bruce, but yeah, they're supposed to bring clipboards and a pen, and I'll have the sheets available for you. Bring binoculars if you've got them. Polarized lenses help to look down into the water. We do have to wade one pool. Sometimes we have to wade one of the other pools too. But I'm not gonna have, I've got designated people that will be waiting. I don't want everybody waiting. You can get up close to the edge and we can see salamander larvae from the edges. So you won't be missing anything by not waiting. But we don't want to disturb the habitat any more than we have to. So we'll show you everything we find.
Okay, that sounds good then. So hopefully we'll see most of the people here tomorrow. If you can't make that field trip, then we'll figure out something else for you to do so you can get certified net anyways then. So, and I'll send out tonight the invites to the Google Drive then for the handouts and everything. Okay,
Thank you.
thanks everybody for coming then.
Thank you.
Okay.
See you tomorrow.
Okay, bye-bye.
Thank you. See y'all tomorrow.
Okay.
Stay warm.
Yes, I will.
Mike.
It is a little chilly here already.
I imagine so.
I was planning on going hiking after this, so I might have to wait on the hiking adventure.
Oh, well, you can hike tomorrow with us.
Well, I'm going to hike in the morning as well, so I'm planning on going to Crabtree, or not Crabtree, Cascades before.
Oh.
Oh, wow.
Like do that before sunrise.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you better get up early.
Yeah, it ain't
You
that
don't want to
bad.
be late for class.
No, don't want to be late for class. So, I'll be there.
All right.
All right, thank you.
Look forward to it.
All right, bye.